Hey team, welcome back. We're now going to deep dive into the weightlifting and strength in the climb phase. So the what of the Olympic weightlifting, so our snatch and our clean and jerk, there'll be a big focus on pause and eccentric work. This will be a mix of pausing in the pull, so as we're coming up, holding for 3 seconds in this phase at the knee, and pausing in the catch. And then we're also going to have isolated pause jerk work. So pausing in the dip of the jerk and in the catch of the split. There's also going to be eccentric and tempo work. So that's working from the hang, lowering slowly down, working some time under tension. The pause duration, so how long we're pausing for or how long we're doing the eccentric for, is going to reduce over the phase as intensity, so as the weight increases. So for this block, we're working at 3 seconds for all our pauses, and that's going to reduce down over the 3 phases as then our percentages go up. The why behind that is going to be building our technique and building our strength in positions. Okay, so if we're pausing at the knee and working that time under tension at the knee, it's going to build our ability to hold our position as we pull from the floor. It's going to build our bracing mechanics and our breathing mechanics and prevent us from being pulled out of position. When we're pausing in the catch, whether that be in the front rack or in the bottom of an overhead squat or in the split, we're obviously then going to be building our strength in those positions, okay? And also working our technique. If you're asked to pause in a power snatch catch and you always starfish, hopefully you can then tidy those positions up and start to get your feet in the right positions. Let's move on then to our strength work. Strength work. For our back and front squat, we're going to be hitting these volume cluster sets, okay? These are going to be where I hit, say, 6 reps. I then rest 30 seconds. I then hit another 6 reps, rest 30 seconds. I then hit a final 6 reps, and then I get 3 minutes rest, okay? That's what a cluster set means, okay? Not to be confused with a clean and thruster. With those volume cluster sets, they are going to be very challenging initially, and they're going to feel like we're doing a workout, okay? We're going to be out of breath, we're going to feel pumped, and there's going to be a degree of muscle soreness afterwards. So make sure, if you are someone who does get soreness after squatting, particularly in high volume, that you start at the lower percentages and the lower set ranges, and then you increase as your body starts to get used to the load of the volume cluster sets. Bookending those cluster sets are going to be a high rep heavy. So to start with, that's going to be build to a heavy 10. And then at the other end, there's going to be volume drop sets. Okay, drop sets are where I maybe hit an AMRAP at 60%, then reduce to 50%, hit another AMRAP, as many reps as possible, then reduce down and get some serious volume from there. Again, with both the high rep heavy and the volume drop sets, if you're someone who gets sore, tight adductors, tight hip flexors, then manage the load. Don't go to your full 10 RM and don't go to full failure on the AMRAPs either. On our deadlifting, which is going to be on a Wednesday, we're going to be working a tempo and eccentric progression, okay? So we're going to be doing a deadlift, and then on the eccentric, there's going to be a slow tempo. Now, obviously, that's going to transfer well to our Olympic weightlifting, where we're also working time under tension and positions. It's going to build our bracing mechanics, build the strength endurance of our posterior chain, and contribute overall to our deadlift improving. The why behind it, just been through it. Building strength, endurance, and muscle size. Okay, we've just finished a phase where we've been really working our top end strength, and now we're moving across to strength endurance, that combo quality of strength and endurance that we need in CrossFit. But we also know that later down the line, when we want to hit our top end strength numbers, that muscle size is a contributor to that. Okay, the more muscle units we have, the more strength potential we have. So with that in mind, we want to be working hypertrophy at this point, because later on when we hit that top end strength, it's going to contribute. Then our strength accessory work. The what is going to be yielding isometrics. Okay, you maybe have seen these. Often we don't work isometrics enough in our strength and conditioning training. Yielding meaning I'm yielding the force of gravity and weight, and isometric meaning a hold. Okay, so it might be a kettlebell, goblet, split squat hold, where I'm holding the most challenging part of the split squat and having to yield that weight for 20 to 30 seconds. I think when we do that, we'll really feel if we've got asymmetries between right and left legs, and then it'll give us some guidance and also help balance those asymmetries out, because we know if we've got one leg that's a bit stronger than the other, it'll cause some overuse injuries and niggles down the line. So ironing them out at this point, after, like we said, we've done a real top end strength focus last phase, we're now going less sport specific and hopefully improving our overall robustness. Then we've also got some triplanar unilateral work. Now, that sounds a bit fancy, but what that basically means is often in CrossFit, we're just working in the sagittal plane. We're going to be working in the frontal and transverse plane a lot in our strength accessory, so giving us greater movement freedom. And like we said, if we're always working in one plane of motion, it can mean that our body has weaknesses in the other plane of motion that are then going to maybe contribute to injuries down the line. So we want to iron them out. The why, we've just been through that: robustness, injury prevention, movement freedom. Okay, we don't want asymmetries, and we also want to be able to move fluidly through all planes of motion and through all joint motions. Brilliant.
Because I'm going to outline the key differences and some of the similarities and ways that the strength bias is going to complement the weightlifting and strength work that Jamie's put in JST Athlete in the all-rounder tracks. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the weightlifting. So you'll notice with the weightlifting that there's not too much different from the main tracks. We wanted to make sure that we gradually build things up, and predominantly the main focus in this phase is to build the volume of the raw strength work up to improve strength endurance, and build muscle mass as well. So to accommodate for that, we've kept the weightlifting volume pretty similar through this phase, but what we have introduced are weightlifting primers. So these weightlifting primers will differ from session to session. Sometimes they will complement the main weightlifting that's after it. Other times, and when I say complement, they might kind of have some, say there's pauses in the main weightlifting sets, there may be some pauses in the primer. Some other sessions, it might be the case that, for example, if we're doing 10 pulls in our neck, and obviously while doing that, we're building strengthening positions. We might in the primer include some 1 1/4 squats or toe cleans to just help refine the speed element. So it could be that, like I say, some sessions we kind of prepare you before we go into the main weightlifting work. Other times it might be a little bit different to make sure that we're touching on other areas of the weightlifting as well. Okay, so that's the main difference for the weightlifting in this first block. There's not really much additional volume other than these primers, so that will make sure that we can recover from the strength work, which is the bigger priority in this phase. So the main priorities are to refine technique, to build muscle mass and start to improve strength. Those are kind of the big two that we want to improve, and obviously coming with that is targeting weaker areas. So going into the lower body strength, what you can expect in addition to what's in the JST Athlete tracks are more compound lifts. So you'll see that on a Wednesday, as well as the no-touch deadlift work, we've included some zombie squats. These are really good for improving your position, stay more upright in a front squat. They're also kind of very good for making sure that you brace properly as well, because they're a little bit more challenging on the core. So we've got those on a Wednesday. And then the one other additional kind of compound lift that we've got are sumo deadlifts. So we'll have some front squats on a Saturday, and then we'll also follow up with the sumo deadlifts after. And again, the idea of that is that we're touching more on on compound lifts, but we're doing variations so that we're not introducing too much fatigue straight away. And also it's really good to hit some variations so that, again, we're just targeting weaker areas. We've found from, again, our experience that, you know, if you do struggle with a deadlift, as an example, sumo deadlift can be a great way to get some additional pulling work in without absolutely smashing your CNS pieces, as an example. So, like I say, we've introduced additional compound lifts to make sure that we're really focusing on strength. So those are kind of the main bits that you can expect in addition to what's in JST Athlete as well. The other thing is that there's a little bit more volume in the main compound lifts too. So it's only by a set or two, but again, the people that tend to need to focus more on strength tend to be hard gainers, and hard gainers tend to need more volume to get the adaptations, get the stimulus, get the adaptations that we need to get stronger, to put on more muscle. So more volume is in to help with that as well. Going on to the upper body strength. So for the upper body strength work, we've introduced strict press, bent over row, strict pull-ups, and close grip bench press. So you see much more differences from the main tracks, JST Athlete tracks, when you compare the strength bias to it. There's a few reasons why we've decided to incorporate these. For most of them, you can utilize a barbell, so you can track your progress a little bit more effectively and see your progressions, which are obviously quite motivating. So that's kind of one of the main reasons we brought in the barbell work. Obviously, as well as that, we're kind of, again, making sure that we're touching on compound lifts more often, and again, just hitting slight variations as well. So as an example, rather than doing just bench press, we're hitting close grip bench press, because if you'll see from what Jamie said in the gymnastics with the strict handstand push-ups being a focus, close grip bench press passes on very, very well to strict handstand push-ups. So again, we've kind of brought it in at this point now, and before we kind of move on to just bench press and we start to build on that. You'll see that the format of both the additional compound lifts for the lower body and the upper body are similar to, again, the back squat and the front squats and the no-touch deadlifts that Jamie's put in the main core. That's so you're really familiar with the with the format and how the lifting works, so you can get through your sessions very efficiently without having to kind of think about, you know, what you've got to do too much, and you can focus on the task at hand. So that's what you can expect there. Again, we've got the variance of the compound lifts to target those weaknesses a little bit more. And again, there's more volume in there to help build more muscle too. Next, going on to the accessory work. So for the weightlifting strength sessions on a Monday, Wednesday and Saturday, you'll also notice the addition of more power work. So I felt like it was important to touch on this and continue to touch on it going forward as well. So we've got kind of one session where you'll focus more on getting a max height, a second session where it's more about endurance, so bounding for more reps, closer to 20 reps, 15 to 20 reps, and then a third session that's weighted. So we're kind of touching on max height, more endurance, and then weighted. And we also make sure that we're not just jumping in one direction through the 3 different sessions throughout the week. We make sure we jump in different directions as well, just touching on that robustness element that, again, Jamie's mentioned before, again, to decrease the chance of getting injured, make sure we're strengthening those weaker areas that maybe don't train, you know, quite as much as what we should, when we tend to do everything just in a straight line when we do CrossFit. So obviously with that additional power work, we're going to improve and increase speed and like your explosive repeatability. So again, being able to cycle a barbell that little bit quicker, that's where kind of the power endurance work and doing this power work will also pay off as well. Other additional accessory work in the strength bias, we make sure we touch a little bit more on some core and grip work. So obviously we're spending lots of time doing these compound lifts that kind of strengthen the whole body. So it makes sense to increase the amount of work that we're also doing for, you know, those areas that connect that lower body to your upper body, or your body to the piece of equipment that you're holding. So we're making sure that we develop, like I say, core and grip in particular. So there's additional accessory work compared to in JST Athlete in the all-rounder tracks for the strength bias. And obviously with that additional accessory work in there, that's also going to help to target weaker areas and develop muscle mass too. For the upper body, again, there's that additional accessory work in there. So there's a little bit more pulling and pushing work. Again, just to make sure that we're hitting the stimulus that we want of building more muscle, improve that strength endurance, and targeting those weaknesses as well. Okay, and that wraps up the strength bias. Hopefully this has been helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see you guys get much stronger this year.